Hello and welcome to 3 Years with Can I Play That? From Joke to Journalism. I am Courtney Craven. I am the co-founder of Can I Play That along with Susan Banks. I consult on inclusion and accessibility in a lot of industries, mainly from gaming and writing to higher education. And I also work as a contractor for Epic Games, where I do all the captioning for the videos that are on the Unreal Engine YouTube channel, and I've been there for going on 3 years now. What is Can I Play That? If you're not familiar with our site, we are first and foremost a media outlet. We do reviews, news, and features all about game accessibility. We're also a learning hub for developers, and we are accessibility consultants. So if you are working on a game and you need some experts in accessibility, give us a shout and we will gladly help you out. And we are inclusion educators with our recently launched workshops. And lastly, we are just a group of community advocates who wanted to come together and make this wild thing work. Last time we were here was not under the best circumstances. My partner Susan Banks had just passed away, and Ian was kind enough to dedicate GAConf 2019 to her. And you see the little dedication here on the screen. We started with a tweet in November 2018. Susan tweeted that we had launched our project. I had bought the domain caniplaythat.com as a joke for her in the summer of 2018, because quite often when a new game would come out, she would ask some form of the question, can I play that? Usually referring to subtitle quality or the ability to remap controls, as she had suffered a stroke and was trying to recover from that. After we launched, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out just what we wanted to be, who we were as an outlet, and we had to find our way and kind of create something that didn't really exist. The first thing we had to decide was, do we want all-encompassing or single-focus reviews? And since Susan and I had only done reviews focusing on deaf and hard of hearing accessibility, we didn't really feel like it was our lane to kind of speculate on mobility accessibility or blind and low vision accessibility, because it wasn't our experience. So we wanted to make Can I Play That unique in that we were experts in our own thing. So we continued doing deaf and hard of hearing reviews, and we worked with other writers to do reviews focusing on accessibility and other disabilities. So again, did we want to review what we know and possibly leave people out with the review, or review everything with a greater potential for inaccurate assessments because it is not our experience? We had to determine review criteria for every review category, and our criteria were created by people that were doing those reviews. So each person is an expert in what they need, what they want developers to know, how to design for them, etc. We had to decide, do we want to edit the scores, which is something that makes us a bit different from regular reviews, because you don't really edit a score for a game. Once it's launched, that's it, right? But with accessibility reviews, quite often games are improved after launch with a patch, because developers listen to feedback, they go in, make text bigger, make controls remappable, things like that. So we had to decide, do we want to edit the scores after we've published them, or would that be a problem with our ethics and stuff like that? And how do we drive home the point that our reviews and our findings are subjective without diluting our expertise? Because everybody is an expert in what they need to play a game, right? But still, that is subjective. You know, what I consider great subtitles, someone else might not be served well by. What someone reviewing for a motor control review, what works for them might not work for somebody else. So there's still a lot of room for subjectivity in our reviews, and they're not, I guess I would call them, they're not fact-based, because they still are based on our experience with a game. We also had to find the balance between high-quality journalism and ensuring disabled people that wanted a platform had one. So anybody that wanted to write to us was free to pitch, and we would quite often publish them. As we grew, we kind of had to refine what we were looking for in the quality of our journalism, because when you go from having 10 average viewers a day to having 1,000, you have to change the way you do things. And when you become a respected outlet for journalism, you need to up your requirements, I guess you could say. So there's a big difference between accessibility journalism and mainstream journalism, specifically speaking to reviews. So when you're reviewing for accessibility, it's an ever-evolving practice, because every game that comes out that does something really great with accessibility sets a new bar. So that becomes a new standard by which you review things and hope for future games to meet. What scored an 8 out of 10 even just 2 years ago would not score the same today, because our expectations have changed. The standard, as I said, changes with each game that further reduces or eliminates barriers. And even something as simple as subtitles that we once thought were good enough. Take a review that we did in 2016. What we gave a great score then would definitely not score the same now, because it changes constantly as new games push the envelope further. With mainstream game journalism, you're reviewing the story, the tech, and it generally stays the same. Even though tech improves, you're still looking for the same kind of basic things in what makes a good game. Is it fun? Is the story engaging? Is it playable with minimal bugs? How's the combat feel? Is it good? Is it clunky? How's it look? And one thing both reviews have in common is subjectivity. So again, if you're reading an accessibility review, it might not be 100% true for your experience, just like if you're reading a mainstream review based on the story, the art, etc., it might not be accurate for you. We have core values at Can I Play That, and those have kind of grown and changed as we have grown and gotten a larger audience. The most important thing to me as the founder, and one of the things I cherish the most, is our relationships with developers. The fact that they trust us, they listen to us, they appreciate our feedback. I know our content is widely shared at studios, and I'm grateful for that. So our relationships with developers are essential to our success. But I want to clarify that that does not make us unethical. We are still always transparent in the work we do. We're unbiased. Just because we get a review code from a Microsoft studio or Ubisoft doesn't mean that we're buddies with them. We're not going to give them a good score just because we like them. If something is problematic, it will still be called out in our review. We respect them and their work, and they respect us and our work. And that is a big part of why we have been around for 3 years now and why we are successful at what we do. We don't lay blame in our reviews, we don't hurl accusations, and we don't make generalizations. Things like, they just don't like disabled people, they didn't try, lazy design, stuff like that. We don't have it in our reviews, and there is no place for anything like that in the Can I Play That community. Our intent is to help developers learn, help them make better games, and educate our community of players. We realize that our reviews serve as a very high-level kind of accessibility consultation post-release, and developers make up a very large portion of our audience. We also work hard to care for our writers, because if you have spent any time doing accessibility advocacy, you know what a cesspool it can be. We do our best to warn new writers about what implications there may be of writing on a subject that can feed the trolls. We publish anonymously if people ask, to protect their identity for things that they're sensitive to writing about, or if they just don't want to be a target of the potential harassment that comes with doing this kind of work. Things started to change for Can I Play That with the release of Gears 5. That was a major, major milestone for us. We were asked if we wanted a review code, and that was among the first major review codes that we had gotten. We were included here on the promotional art that had the scores roundup, and we were also included in a television commercial that aired during some sports ball game. I don't know. I don't watch the sports. But that was a major, major turning point for us, because that was retweeted by a lot of executives and people at the coalition, people at Microsoft, and that brought people in droves to caniplaythat.com. I think they actually broke the site and we had to upgrade our hosting after that. And as we grew, I had to accommodate more users. At the time, I was managing the site by myself. I didn't know better. I used an overlay. Nobody likes overlays. I'm sure you have all heard about the horrors of overlays. They're kind of a band-aid solution, and they don't really help, actually. But that is when ActiveBit came to the rescue, and he built our beautiful custom stuff that you see on the site right now. And shortly after Active joined the team, Ben Bayless joined the team, and he started doing news, which again brought a whole new audience to Can I Play That? And because we were giving people accessibility news that no other outlets really were focusing on at the time, and still aren't really. You see it from time to time on the major outlets if it's a big, big thing, or if it's problematic, like you've seen the Deathloop news recently, and but it's not something that you can find often on mainstream sites. So when Ben came, he kind of upped the game for us and started doing regular news, and now people know that Can I Play That is a source for accessibility news as well as reviews. The Last of Us Part 2 was the second major milestone in Can I Play That? Naughty Dog retweeted our review, which not only brought trolls, but it also brought a number of visitors to the site that we had not ever seen before. You can see here in this chart, it shows our average users per day, and in May 2020, we had 10K viewers. In June, it skyrocketed up to 48K viewers. And it trickled off a little bit after that. In November and December, things happened, which I'll get into later. But after that, it kind of never really went back to the lower 6, 7K numbers, and we're still consistently doing big numbers at the site, which is good for us. We know that people are reading our content and that they appreciate it, so that keeps us going. With lots of attention comes lots of responsibility. Now that we had thousands and thousands of eyes on the site, people were starting to notice us and notice our shortcomings, which were not great. They noticed our all-white staff and rightfully called me out on it. My initial reaction to that, as many people would have a defensive reaction, was defensive. You know, I was being called out on the fact that I had assembled a team of all-white editors and writers. And while that was true, I wanted to be defensive initially about it. You know, Susan wasn't white, so we hadn't always been staffed entirely by white people. But I listened. Instead of reacting defensively, I listened, chatted with the editors, and we all admitted that people were right. We did need to do better. And I was introduced to a book that changed my perspective on everything. Dolly Chugg's The Person You Mean to Be, How Good People Fight Bias. And while it has absolutely nothing to do with game development, reading that book and reading about the concepts in there really changed my approach to continuing to grow Can I Play That? And after I read that book, after we were taken to task on our lack of inclusion and diversity, I committed to holding one of our 2 paid feature spots every month for a writer of color. Did that make people mad? Yes, it did. Did we care? Not so much, because our content is better for it. And if diversity and inclusion is a problem for a reader, then our community is not the place for them. It's very simple to me that that's one of my core values, and I am sticking to it. I learned from Dolly's book that I need to seek out narratives from writers of color instead of waiting for Can I Play That to be pitched, because if someone looks at our staff page and sees a sea of white faces, understandably, they're not probably going to feel comfortable pitching to us, because why would they? You know, I mean, that speaks to why a lot of accessibility writing hasn't appeared in mainstream media outlets on gaming, because it's not really the most welcoming place if you don't see yourself represented in the staff. I learned that we were only sharing part of the story on disabled gaming and accessibility by failing to have writers of color. I learned that from some of our writers. I learned that from conversations with people that have nothing to do with games. I learned that there are vastly different experiences of disability, and we need to work to include all of those if we're going to have a truly inclusive community. And we still have a long way to go in making Can I Play That really inclusive, but our commitment to having writers of color in our featured spots has made the content so much better. Then came Trolls and Burnout. Had nothing to do with the previous changes we made. It had to do with an issue that I flagged and was harassed for about a month for. But as anybody that is on the internet knows, trolls are incessant. You know, they don't stop. They don't leave you alone. So why did we burn out? Well, we had set an expectation for ourselves, our staff, that was impossible to sustain, impossible to meet. We were still operating without any kind of meaningful funding. We still only have our Patreon support, which is right around $500 a month. All of the editors, after the release of The Last of Us Part 2 and the new generation of consoles, we were essentially working full-time on the site without being compensated for our time, which that'll burn anybody out. If you're not making money doing your job, then you're not going to want to keep doing it. We were denied grants that we had applied for. To date, we have applied for 6 different grants, all of various amounts, and we have been denied for the same reason by all of them. They just don't see the value in what we're doing. The audience is not large enough. The need is not large enough to justify the expense. Toxicity. That is a big one. It's hard to keep doing what you're doing when everyone wants to harass you. And the toxicity comes from 2 places. One, within the gaming community, related to readers having forgotten that our accessibility reviews are subjective and our opinions, and want to be mad at us because we're not covering something specific to them. It's hard to know that you're continuing to fail your own community just because you can't speak to their experience. And from general horrible people outside the accessibility community was the other big one. We launched Can I Play That workshops in February 2021 with Stacy Jenkins and new to gaming Ishan Lai. It is a new branch of Can I Play That, and one that I am focusing on now that Ben Bayless has taken over as editor-in-chief. Why workshops? Well, many reasons. Our reviews started to feel too repetitive. You know, you say the same things over and over and over again. You can only complain about text size so many times before you just want to copy and paste your last review into the new review. So we're getting to a point where the problems are identical in every game release, and as a creative person, as creative people, none of us want to write the same thing over and over again. I wanted to do something more with and for our large developer audience. Again, I felt that reviews were probably becoming repetitive for them as well, because even if a review is not for your specific game, there's always something you can learn from it. But you can't learn the same thing 15 times, right? I wanted to expand our brand in hopes of making us more attractive to potential grant givers and investors, and possibly making us profitable. If we don't want to keep saying the same things over and over again in our reviews, then we have to do something to help change things. We have to approach the problem another way, to give accessibility reviewers something new to review, a new problem to address in our writing. And with more journalists talking about accessibility at other publications, we needed to do something to change it up to stay relevant, because who wants to read 15 accessibility reviews from different outlets, right? And because I hated being an editor. I am bad at it. I'm not the best editor. Even though I went to grad school twice for writing, I'm not a good editor. I don't enjoy it. It's not where I thrive. I am much better positioned as an educator, as a teacher leading our workshops. And it was a chance to work with new people, which is always exciting, to bring new people into Can I Play That, to help people benefit from the brand that we have built, from the trust that we have built in the industry. And that for me is the most exciting part, is being able to work with new people, being able to do new things, and remain excited about this site that I have a love-hate relationship with. What's next for Can I Play That? Money, hopefully. We need money to keep doing what we're doing. Yeah. Since our grants didn't work out, we are exploring partnerships with other outlets and even studios and publishers to try to work out some way to get our content in front of more eyes, make ourselves more profitable and sustainable. We're considering doing a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign to get an initial amount of funding. And we're also considering increasing our Patreon efforts, because when we launched our Patreon, my take on it was, we're doing the content for free, so the reward for the Patreon is the content. And we may look at revising that, renewing our Patreon efforts to offer rewards for hopefully more subscribers and supporters. We can have ads. Ads break accessibility. If you've ever been to a major outlet, you likely have been so bogged down by ads that the site is barely usable. So you can see the barrier that ads present. So we cannot have them. And lastly, funding will enable us to better fulfill our commitment to a more diverse staff. Again, that is one of the most important things for me as the co-founder of Can I Play That. We want to represent everyone. We want the entire narrative of gaming while disabled. We want to be an inclusive site, and we need money to do that so we can pay a diverse staff instead of Ben and I just continuing to do it for free. And tech is what's next for us as well. We want to bring Can I Play That into the tech world. We're slowly expanding into tech. I'm planning a review for the iPhone 13. We want to review things like phones, operating system, peripherals, controllers. There's a huge need for what we do at Can I Play That in the tech industry. And broadening our scope into tech may also lead for new funding opportunities. And that is that. That is 3 years with Can I Play That, where we've been, where we've screwed up, and where we are going in the future. I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope that you've learned a little bit about us, what we do, what we hope to do. And thank you for watching.